Yo, what is up, everybody? Chris here from FaZe Sports News, back at it again with another video. And you guys know what time it is. It's Major 4, so you know why I'm here. Report card time, baby. Let's see who failed and who passed. So looking at our report cards, we, of course, are going in alphabetical order, as you are all accustomed to. So kicking things off, we are, of course, going to be looking at my home team, Atlanta FaZe, FaZe Up. And I gave them a B+ for their Stage 4 performance. I felt like their teamwork was really solid. Their composure was very solid. Their hard point was decent, could have been better. Their S&D, excuse me, was lights out. This was their best game mode, and more on that in a second. And their controls is C+. I thought their control, this was the worst control that we've seen from FaZe ever since the mode was introduced in the competitive, of course, in the CDL last season in Cold War. So back to my comments, FaZe is playing really well in S&D while looking strong enough in the other respawn modes. Their controls looked good against some of the worst teams, but against the best teams, even teams like LA Thieves, their control didn't look too good. So that's not really encouraging going into the major. But to me, the more important thing is that their S&D is on point. If FaZe can get back to where they were in Cold War, where they were a dominant S&D team, that's how they won a lot of their chips. Their hard point and their control was absolutely insane. I mean, they had, I believe, an 80 or 85% win rate when they finished the year out. So they were absolutely insane in control. But their hard point was not always on top. It was definitely the best in the game for the majority of the game, but it wasn't like the clear-cut #1 all year long where they lost like 5 maps, right? I mean, they lost maps here and there. They still were FaZe, but it wasn't like perfect like their S&D was. So now seeing that their S&D is kind of getting back to that perfect form, of course, we know from my videos recently that they had a double 6-0 against LA Thieves. They went 12-0 in a series, and I don't think they lost a search. They even won the searches in their matches against London and LAG, which they lost. So that really bodes well for them, because when they got to grand finals in the previous 3 majors, the S&D is really what killed them. So I think that they will definitely have a more favored, I guess, outlook going into the major. I think that they definitely can win this one because their S&D is looking so strong. The reason why I was never really 100% sure that they would win the previous majors, even though I thought they would win them, was because their S&D was somewhat lackluster. It just wasn't as dominant as it should have been with, you know, RJ and Crowder as coaches, and then Tupac as your S&D coach. So with that in mind, I think FaZe have a very good chance of taking the event, and I'll be doing a tier list in the next video. So be sure to check that out when it goes live on the channel a little bit later today. Now, looking at our second team, we of course have the Boston Breach, and the Boston Breach went 4 and won this stage. So I gave them an A+. They were one of our better performing teams this stage, and they really just pulled it all together at the right time. Looking at their skills, I think their teamwork was an A. They did very well. Bringing in Reese or Vivid this stage was really what they needed to just win. They clearly hit the win now button, and it's working out really well for them. So I think going into the major, this bodes very well, especially since they're currently sitting in 5th place in the standings. Yes, they're in 5th place. 6th place, I'm sorry. They're behind Toronto. So looking at their ratings, I mean, their composure, well, I'll check in post. Maybe they're 6th place, 5th place. Who knows? It's so close. Their composure is an A+ in my book. Their hard point was an A+. Their hard point was phenomenal this stage. Their S&D was an A+. S&D is phenomenal. And control was an A+ also. Going 4 and 1, all your modes have to be strong, right? You can't just luck out and win 2, 3, 5 every series and act like that's repeatable or really encouraging. So this is the best of the Breaches looked all year, in my opinion. I mean, they had some really strong performances stage 1, stage 2, but they really kind of fizzled out mid-year around stage 3. And during stage 2 as well, they didn't really keep it up all year long. So this is the best the Breaches looked all year. Like I said, the roster change helped them a lot, and they beat all 3 of our major winners in stage 4. Yes, they beat Seattle Surge, they beat Optic, and they beat LA Guerillas. I believe all of those were game 4s too. I think maybe Seattle went game 5. I think they went game 5 LAG too. Well, I think a couple of them were game 5s. They might have all been game 5s. Who knows? But they won. Point is, they won. They did what they needed to do. They handled business against Surge, Optic, and of course, LA Guerillas. LA Guerillas looked really good as well. They definitely are a team that can play spoiler, but more on them in a little bit. Alphabetically, they're pretty close. So I'll talk about them in a second. Looking at our next team, we have the Florida Mutineers. And Mutineers really surprised me. I thought that this team was honestly going to be a little bit better at times than they ended up being, but I understand where their flaws come in. So looking at them, I gave them a B plus this stage. I thought they did really well. They outperformed most people's expectations. I thought this roster change was really beneficial to them, getting a more methodical AR who can really change the pace and kind of match this Florida team like Major Maniac can. He's more of a mobile AR, even though he is somewhat slow at times. He's really good at just playing fundamentally sound COD, and he's really good in the clutch. I mean, that guy, I mean, we all know, we attribute one quote to him: it's never chalked, and he proves it time and time again with crazy, crazy moments. Every time Major's in the fold, something crazy happens. So this Florida team really needed him because in the clutch, they were just really folding. So I'm happy that they went out and got him. Too Real, when he's gotten comfortable, he's really, really a strong player. S&D is where he shines. It's where he shined so far. And I think the Mutineers are poised to make a very decent run at the major. So looking at their skills, this stage, I would give them a B teamwork wise. I thought their teamwork was very, very solid. I think it can definitely improve going into the major, but obviously it's a very new team, so they're still figuring that part out. That's why I said it's pretty good. It could definitely be better, but considering how little time they've had together, it's very good. Their composure, A plus. I mean, their composure was amazing. In S&D especially, their composure really comes through very, very clearly, excuse me. Their hardpoint has improved overall, but their biggest problem is consistency. I mean, Vivid, love him or hate him, I mean, the guy just gets a lot of engagements. So you can really plan around a player having a lot of engagements, even if they're negative in some cases. Obviously, if a guy's getting tucked, it doesn't help. But in the case of Mutineers, they made it work for them. So I think their hardpoint is definitely taken a little bit of a dip in that point, from that point of view, excuse me, because Too Real has just been very inconsistent. But if he can start consistently playing well, I would definitely put their hardpoint in the A plus. It was very, very strong, even with his poor performances at time. Major, Wake, and Skies just, they're really, really a great trio. I think Florida should keep these players next year, at least that core, and build around them if they don't do well with Too Real. Their S&D is an A plus. Major really transformed this team. Controls an A minus. Florida's looking great after their roster change. They just need Too Real to perform consistently, like I said, to succeed at the stage 4 major if they want to qualify for champs. They are currently a bubble team. They're either in 9th or 10th place. So they really, really need to win matches and make sure that Thieves lose. So they're going to be playing for FaZe today. Looking at our next team, we of course have the London Royal Ravens, who I think are T1 this stage, tied for first place with New York. Their teamwork A, composure A plus plus. I mean, they beat FaZe. They handled business where they needed to. Hardpoint A plus plus. Their hardpoint was phenomenal. S&D A plus. Their S&D has improved considerably, and S&D wins championships. So Ravens are poised to make a very deep run. New York subliners, their glaring issue is their S&D. So I think with that in mind, Ravens can definitely take their spot as the clear-cut favorite of the underdog teams that aren't Optic or FaZe. Control, I gave a C. Control was a dub for them. I don't know that they won more than one control in stage 4. I mean, their control is basically just a free dub. They were getting 3-0'd sometimes. I mean, it's just bad. So looking at our comments here, London was the best team this stage, in my opinion, and they proved this by beating FaZe. If they clean up their control, they are favored to win it all this weekend. Their S&D is really, really, really strong, and so is their hardpoint. So I think London is in the best position of all teams at this major right now, including the defending champs, of course, Seattle and FaZe and Optic. I think that they are really the team to beat. And if you deal with them early, you've definitely eliminated the hottest team coming into this major. Now, looking at our next team, I told you I'd cycle back to them pretty quickly. The LA Guerillas, they had a B minus in stage 4. I gave them a B minus just because of the upsets that they caused. Even though they had a losing record, they were able to, teamwork, I misclicked. I meant to say their teamwork was a B plus. Their teamwork was actually pretty solid considering how fly by night this team kind of is. It was kind of a pickup team for stage 4. Obviously making a replacement of 2 players, of course, replacing Asim and Gunless for Neptune and Spart, who is returning from obviously being benched after Major 2. He's a little risky this late in the year, right? You don't know if it's going to work out, but it seems to be working out for Guerillas. They're finding their form. They're definitely finding more consistency in the respawns in their slaying. S&D was never really the problem for them. They have great coaches who are S&D specialists, so that's never really much of a concern. Ricky and Bevels have always been S&D players, but their respawn was the problem, and their respawn has gotten a lot more consistent with Neptune and, of course, Spark being added into the fold. Even though nobody really stands out and has like necessarily takeover performances every game, Slasher really has become more comfortable as the AR, and that is reflected in his stats and his performance overall. So I think with that in mind, the Guerillas are definitely the underdog again. It's almost like Major 2 all over again, except they're in losers instead of winners because they went 2 and 3 instead of 3 and 2. So I gave their composure a B minus. Their composure could have been better. They threw things away at times. Their hardpoint I gave a B plus. It was definitely very solid, much improved. S&D B plus, pretty much what you'd expect from Guerillas. And their control I gave a B. Their control was like okay. So LAG beat our clear-cut best teams this stage, which were Atlanta and London. I wouldn't necessarily put New York in that category just because they have a big question mark right now. Paco or Hydra, I believe, has Corona. So I don't know if he's going to play at the major. So if he doesn't play at the major, then their season is likely over. And that's really sad because they had literally the most exciting storyline going into champs that I can remember in the last like 3 or 4 years. I don't remember a team making the Cinderella run and qualifying for champs like this. I'm trying to reflect, maybe there was a team, but I can't think of one. So the Guerillas have upset potential at the major if they can play as a unit all weekend long, and consistency is key for them. If they can really find some consistency, I think they have a very good chance to make a deep run at this tournament. Now looking at our next team, the Toronto Ultra, I gave them a C+. They did not beat the fell-off allegations. They had a really rough stage 4. They had an amazing stage 3 major. They placed 3rd at their own major. They looked really, really good. They were so hot. But I think honestly what happened was they just played up. They played so far up. It's LAN. These guys are great LAN players, all 4 of them. They proved that in the Cold War season last year. And they were at their home event. They had nothing to lose and everything to gain. So I think they were really riding the momentum of the crowd being on their side. And, you know, at this stage, we just got more of the Ultra that we've seen all year long. I mean, their teamwork, I gave a B plus. It was decent, but it wasn't Cold War Ultra. It left something to be desired. Their composure, I gave a C plus. Composure was gone, chalked. Hardpoint B minus. It was okay. They played okay hardpoint. It could have definitely been better. It wasn't as good as last year. S&D, same thing. Could have been better. Wasn't as good as last year. And control, not great. Toronto had a rough stage, but on the flip side, looking at the more positive aspect of things, the more encouraging aspect of things, they lost to 3 of our top 4 teams this stage. So that is encouraging for them. They lost to London, Boston, and FaZe. So I don't know. I feel like that is encouraging for them. I think they'll do well in the losers bracket, despite having a disappointing online split, just because Boston, I mean, they've been on another level this stage. London has been on another level this stage, and FaZe has been on another level this stage, barring, of course, their 2 losses to LAG, and of course, London has been on another level. So with Ultra, I think that they just got really unlucky with their scheduling. They had one of the most difficult schedules in this stage. So I think going into the major, that's not necessarily something to hold against them. And I think that they will definitely win at least a few matches, probably enough to secure themselves a spot at champs, but who knows, with the points being as tight as they are. I mean, if they get knocked out early, a team like Florida could definitely take their spot. Anyone could take their spot at this point. New York could take their spot if they win enough series. So Ultra really has to come out and make sure that they clean things up, play their game, and try to find the form that they had last year in Cold War. That's really all they can do right now. So looking at our next team, we of course have Optic Texas, our defending stage 1 champs. Horrible stage for them. This is the worst showing that I've seen from Optic really since the nade shot days, if I'm being honest. And even then, they were better than this. I don't think I've ever seen Optic down this bad. Even in World War II, like their roughest year, they didn't do this bad in Pro League. So I don't know. I think Optic's in a really weird place right now. Bringing Illy back into the fold at such a crucial time is just, it's hard, you know, like, do you make the call and say, okay, we're going to play with Pro Loot for the rest of the year because they weren't doing well with Pro Loot, or excuse me, Pro Loot, or do you bring Illy back in and risk it? I mean, it's just, they were in such a rough spot. Like, they were between a rock and a hard place, and, you know, the rock fell on them and crushed them this stage. So we'll see how it goes at the major. They have already clinched their spot at champs, so I don't really know that they care as much about major 4 or the qualifying stage, because their spot's secured, and it's really just practice for them in FaZe. This event and the quals were just practice. So let's get right into their skills. C+ across the board. Nothing was encouraging for Optic this stage. There were definitely points where it looked like they could win matches, but they just threw things away. Their composure was out the window. They looked really good sometimes, and then they would just get rolled on. So I'm not sure what's going on with Optic. I think probably just the readjustment of bringing Illy back in after playing with Pro Loot for really like 2 months is the problem. But looking at the comments, similar to Seattle, this is the worst stretch for Optic we've seen in the CDL. And I mean similar to Seattle in the sense that Optic did not beat the fell-off allegations. If they can't devise new strategies to counteract really the way that teams are adapted to just knowing more about the game and knowing more about their team composition, how they like to play Vanguard, they are in for a disappointing end to their most promising season in many years. So I hope Optic can get it together. I really want them to make champs interesting, because they are one of the strongest teams in the CDL, if not the strongest, when they're on their game. So I hope Optic can bounce back at the major. They are in losers. They went 1-4. They had an absolutely abysmal stage. The only team they beat was Paris Legion. So I hope they can get it together, and I hope they can make a run. But as it stands, Optic is not in a great spot. I think they have the potential, obviously, but we'll see. Now, on to their down bad duo, the Seattle Surge. I gave them a D as well for down bad. No, I'm kidding. I gave them a D just because their performance was abysmal. They just won stage 3. So we were expecting them to at least go 3-2, right? Not 1-4. 1-4 is absolutely pitiful. So I gave them C+ across the board. They were mid. They were below mid. I mean, they were bad. They were bad. Optic and Seattle were bad this stage. Our defending major champs did not beat the fell-off allegations. They need to clean up all their game modes and start supporting Pred on the map. The problem with Seattle this stage was that Pred was really going off the entire time, and no one was able to support him. I think it's probably just a problem of him playing a little bit too fast and making superstar plays that are honestly inconsequential. Like, if you're going 40 and 32 and your team loses, were your superstar plays really consequential? I mean, they didn't influence the game. Damon Karma Barlow, what made him the GOAT was he would go 18 and 25, but he would have the most important interactions on the map consistently. And until Pred learns how to do that with his team, and they learn how to play around him to make his engagements more consequential in the grand scheme of things, Seattle is going to continue to struggle. They play every team the same. So once people figure out Pred flank, Pred go flank, you know, it's pretty much it. Like, accuracy can easily be neutralized. I mean, how many spots in the game are called Lamar heady or accuracy or whatever? Sib is an amazing player, but what can he and Mac do if 2 of their players are the most easily read players in the game? Pred on the flank, accuracy in the spawn. Like, you know what's going to go down mid-map. There has to be Mac and Sib somewhere in the middle of that, right? There's a sandwich, and Pred's at the front, accuracy's at the back. So until Seattle switches up their game plan a little bit, I don't expect them to really have much impact on really the landscape of really the major at this point. If they can't get it together and they don't win a single match, I feel like they'll still qualify for champs, but I feel like their seeding would be not great. I think a lot of these teams are going to at least get 30 or so points. So for your LA Thieves and teams like that with at least 150 points, Seattle only has 185. So if LA Thieves can get like 40 points and Seattle, let's say, don't win a series the entire weekend, then they get surpassed pretty easily. So in my opinion, with the way the stats work out, one of these teams outside of the top four is guaranteed to get the top six placing. And with the top six placing, I believe you get 30 points. So if it's a team like LA Thieves or anyone above LA Thieves in the standings, then they leapfrog Seattle. And if anybody else gets in, and let's say FaZe, Optic, and London get knocked out as well, you're guaranteed to have somebody leapfrog Seattle in the standings and possibly London too if they get double bopped. So Seattle really needs to pick it up and develop a new game plan or else they're in big trouble. That's why I gave them a D. Paris Legion gave them an F, more of the same. C plus, C plus, C plus. Control looked good, but everything else mid. Paris only has 20 points this season. Apart from knocking a bubble team out of champs contention, their story this year is just over. The management didn't really put together a winning team, and it showed. So hopefully the move to Vegas is beneficial to them, and hopefully the management starts to take the CDL more seriously. But yeah, I mean, F, like, it's chalked. Looking at the New York Subliners are, of course, major hosts. I gave them an A+. They look great coming into this event. A+ across the board. Teamwork, composure, hardpoint, SD, and control all look phenomenal, with the exception of S&D being a little bit questionable at times. But they definitely show that they're improving in S&D. I liked some of the looks from them. And I think that going into the major, the improvements that they made in all three game modes will definitely propel them to a very good run if Hydra is healthy. And NYSL looks like the most complete team this stage, along with London. If you neglect S&D, if London and New York merged their better game modes, then they'd be the perfect team, right? But London's weak in control. New York is great at control. London is great at S&D. New York sucks at S&D. So they both have glaring weaknesses that can definitely bite them in the butt when the major rolls around. And like I said, if Hydra can play, they can win it all. But I think he has COVID right now, so we'll see if he can play. Looking at the Minnesota Rokkr, they are the only team who was accused of falling off that beat the fell off allegations. So I give them a B+ with their teamwork. Their teamwork looked pretty solid. Compose, not there decidedly. Hardpoint, not as great as it was. I gave it a C+. I thought it was pretty mid, if I'm being honest. S&D, B-, not typical Rokkr S&Ds. A little bit more scrappy. I don't know that it looked discouraging, but it also didn't look as encouraging as it did before. Last stage, it was lights out. Control, I gave a B. Their control is actually pretty solid as well still, but it definitely has room for improvement. And in my comments, Rokkr beat the fell off allegations, but they need some wins on land to secure a spot at champs. They play New York round 1, which isn't very encouraging, but that's assuming that they're playing with Glacier instead of Hydra. Saying that's not encouraging is not realistic if they're playing with Clay, but if they're playing with Hydra, then it's not very encouraging. I feel like that matchup is not good for Minnesota. I feel like New York is just a more complete team in respawns, and I feel like they have better composure and better, teamwork and just guidance from Krim. So looking at our next team, we of course have the LA Thieves. And I gave them a B+. I really like the LA Thieves this stage. They of course made winners. Their teamwork, I gave a C+. Composure, I gave a C-. Composure was not good. We saw that in the double 6-0 loss. Hardpoint, A+, S&D, C-, and control an A. LA team needs more, LA team needs to be more composed. The double 6-0 in S&D against FaZe is a clear sign of a lack of mid-round calls and composure. Two things you need to win a major. So two things are wrong with LA Thieves I've seen. Their composure is not there, and their mid-round adjustments in S&D are still lacking, even after trying to really fix it and retool it and making their S&D a lot better with Shane coming in as an assistant coach. back to square one. So if the LA Thieves can really devise some strong strategies in S&D and figure out what was going wrong there, um, then they can definitely make a deep run. But as it stands, LA Thieves S&D was really not encouraging this stage, and they need a complete overhaul if they're going to make a deep run at this major. So yeah, guys, I'll just about wrap it up. For me, that covers everybody in the league. That covers all 12 of our teams. Be sure to, of course, tune into part 2 of my coverage where I go over a tier list and make my bracket right along with you guys. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed all of this. This is a super long video. I know I'm trying to keep them shorter, but it's the end of the year, so there's a lot of information to distill and convey to you guys. So sorry for it being long, but I also want to get all the information that you need to really know what's going on. And yeah, that's my explanation. But yeah, I hope you guys have a great morning, noon, or night, wherever you may be on this beautiful planet. If you don't plan on watching part 2, I appreciate you watching part 1 up to this point. And I hope you enjoy all the COD this weekend. Be sure to tune into each and every match, because if any of these bubble teams lose and get eliminated, their seasons are over. They cannot earn any more points. So all of these matches are super high stakes. It can be any higher stakes. This is the most high stakes COD we have ever seen in history. Okay. Competitive COD has never had stakes this high. I really like the way that these CDL points have panned out this season, because the end of the season is going to be absolute pandemonium. I have no idea who's going to make it to champs. No one does. This is going to be absolute dynamite to end the year, and it's going to be really interesting. So I'm so excited about this tournament. This is definitely the most exciting major in the CDL ever, and I hope you guys enjoy it. So yeah, be sure to check out part 2, like I said before. Have a great morning, noon, or night, wherever you may be on this beautiful planet, and I will catch you guys on the next video. Once again, this is Chris from FaZe Sports News, and I'm signing out. Peace.